What's up, spell slingers? My name is Garion John Wells.
I'm Drew Flitton.
And I'm Cory Janibagian.
And this is UNTAP
Upkeep.
Drink.
Beer up.
Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the color red.
This will be the 4th episode in our Color Wheel series.
My favorite color.
But before that, let's get into the beers. So
On theme, we all got some red beers with the caveat of Drew's beer.
it has a very prominently red label.
It's a big old red
bottle's
bottle.
red, yeah.
Yeah, it is. You'll see it in the pictures, whether on Instagram or just on the video. We've got the Rogue Double Chocolate Stout. This is stout brewed with natural flavor. It has 9% ABV, 60 IBU, so it's a bit more bitter than what you'd normally see, at least for the beers that we generally drink.
Yeah, I don't think I've had a lot of rogue beers. I've had, was it Arrogant Bastard?
Yeah, we've had Arrogant Bastard.
That one I really like.
We've had the Lemon Chiffon IPA. That's the one, the pink bottle, I believe.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to this one. Garion showed me a picture of this one a couple weeks ago, and was like, "Hey, look what I got for this one." I said, "Dibs."
Yep.
There's no second.
A lot
guessing.
of good stuff going on.
I was like, do you guys want to do this for red? And Drew's like, let's shoot red tonight. Coming over.
Ooh, that's nice. The bitterness is definitely kind of up front with this one. They're not fucking around. Think just a nice dark chocolate is what I'm getting off of this one. Kind of a light coffee vibe from the malts. Nice bitterness to it. Oh, that is a more complex stout than what I thought it was going to be. Honestly, thought it was going to be super heavy chocolate and kind of be one note, but the bitterness really kind of carries through the entire drink, and it adds a little more depth to it.
Yeah, it's chocolate up front, first off.
Party in the back.
Party, a little bitter in the back.
Think of like 70% bitterness chocolate, like 70% cocoa.
Yeah. It's like baking cocoa.
Yeah.
Just regular cocoa powder. Oh, yeah, it's definitely
Goddamn, I would get so
super chocolatey.
Yeah.
But there's a little,
But, yeah,
little lingering in the back.
Yeah, it tastes just like eating dark chocolate.
Second swallow, yeah.
Like there's a cake that uses beer in it, as I think it's just like the yeast element to it. And you replace the water. Yeah. And so I think this would be amazing with it.
Awesome.
We're going to do it. We'll find out what that beer is or what that cake is.
Really good.
All right, and today I am going to be rocking the Upslope Brewing Company from Boulder, Colorado. It's a limited release blood orange saison. So this one, also a red can, but I like the blood orange. We're fitting in our theme a little bit better. This is 6.0 ABV. I can't find the IBUs, but being as it's a saison, I can't imagine it's crazy bitter. Oh, yeah, just like most saisons, it's got that kind of funky, I almost said mildewy, but kind of like fungusy
Just
back end, yeah. But that's pretty good. It's fruity, but not like fresh fruity, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm not getting a lot of blood orange,
Yeah, I don't really either.
but it's pretty sweet, nice and crisp.
Kind of spicy, very much an ale.
There's definitely some light citrus notes to it, but it is a saison first and foremost. It does have that farmhouse ale kind of vibe to it. It's enjoyable, but it's not generally my thing. Got that funk that you see.
Yeah, I think I'm subscribing to Cory's palate a little more. Like I really like those funky kind
Yeah, I dig all that weird stuff, especially when it's fruity and citrusy and stuff like that. I can get down with that. So today I am rolling with the Two Towns Cider House Fruit Seasonal Two Thorns. It's a raspberry rose cider made with raspberries and rose petals.
It's the least red can and the most red
It
beer.
is super red.
Got a beautiful color to it.
Looks like cranberry juice.
It's a 5.5%, boldly crafted in Oregon.
The blood orange saison has IBUs of 25.
25. Okay.
So not very bitter.
Yeah, I
but
can feel that.
more enjoyable. Because that is a cider, it won't generally have IBUs on it.
Yeah, I'm
Because
not
it is
seeing anything.
Part of the International Bitter Units for beer. Ciders are generally, I think, between 10 and 30 on IBUs generally.
Sounds
but they're
about
closer
right.
to the teens.
It says no added sugar.
I believe it. You don't need much sugar when you're adding in rose and fucking raspberry.
Okay, I'm going in. It tastes just like wine.
I mean, it's kind of what you
Okay.
expect out of a cider, right?
Yeah.
Is it an aged cider or is it just a... Ooh, that smell is delicious. If you ever had like rose candies, add a little bit of like rose gummies, add in raspberry flavor, and that's the smell.
Okay, so while it's in your mouth, very cidery juice like, and then as soon as you swallow,
That aftertaste is
you
definitely
get that
just wine.
Yeah, it looks and tastes a lot like wine. And I'm digging it.
I'm not a wine guy. I do not like wine, but that is delicious.
I've been getting into wine, and this...
You've been getting into it.
Yeah.
That's a good starter if you're trying to go for
It's not even a wine. This is a good starter wine because it's a cider.
right. But yeah, holy shit, that is good.
That's pretty enjoyable.
So today we're talking red. We've got some red drinks. I think we should start out first by quoting Mark Rosewater.
As always, yeah, we want to bring that out to the beginning of the show here.
Mark.
So white seeks peace through structure, blue seeks perfection through knowledge, black seeks power through ruthlessness, red seeks freedom through action, and green seeks acceptance through growth. So we're talking about red here, so we're looking at freedom through action. All right, so what does red actually represent in MTG?
So red is based around these ideas. It's a very emotional color, and we divided it up into 4 sections. We've got act first, think second, everything burns, chaos controls us, and combat is at the core. So let's dive back into this idea of acting first and thinking second. And it's this concept of you have an emotional response to everything. You're rushing into every action.
Yeah, the idea is just that you want to take action now. You want to think about, question later, basically. Act first, question later. And you see that in the haste keyword, the dash mechanic. You see Zergo Bellstriker, Lightning Zerker, those types of cards where it's kind of this fleeting moment of action and then deal with the consequences later.
Exactly, yeah.
So the red player is the player that gives in to their impulses. They have a lack of control in that they react emotionally. And so their desire outpaces their realistic goals.
Yeah, red is kind of the, I want it now, regardless if I can use it. And you see that in impulsive draw mechanic, which is when you exile the top cards of your library and you're allowed to play them until end of turn. You see it in act on impulse, light up the stage, outpost siege, where you exile the top card of your library, you can play it until end of turn, but that doesn't mean you actually are able to.
Yeah, these are just some of the alternate ways that red has card draw. And it's just, you draw it and you got to play it this turn or else it's gone forever. Another thing red likes to do is avoid waiting. They just want fast games. They want to get in and go hard.
Red isn't very good at keeping extended fights going. Like, it does have a high end curve with like dragons and stuff, but generally speaking, it wants to just get in fast, attack, burn your opponent out.
Yeah,
That's where you're going to find decks like mono red burn.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to hear those things.
low to the ground,
Yep.
get in fast.
Good, efficient burn spells like lightning bolt, shock, chain lightning.
Yeah, the OGs. And then another thing red likes to do is just attack with reckless abandon. And by this, we mean just big dudes that you just want to swing, get some damage in, and then they're just out.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to the dash mechanic. But then we also have cards like Spark Elemental, Impetuous Devils, which have a low CMC. You get it out fast. They got trample. Usually have haste as well.
Yeah.
They probably only have like 1 point of toughness, something
Yeah.
like that. So they're going to die likely on combat. It's just a matter of getting that damage in now.
Yeah, you don't really care if they die. You want them to die usually.
And also red has this attitude of like, I get what I want no matter what it costs. So they'll pay whatever to get the result that they need.
They'll always risk it for the biscuit.
Which makes so much sense why that's Cory's favorite saying, because he's the red player.
Yeah, basically what we're trying to say is that red is willing to risk everything, literally everything, for sake of winning. They're willing to risk the game, their life total. Sometimes they're going to throw their lands away.
Yep.
And we see that in the extra turn cards that red has, like Final Fortune, Last Chance, Warrior's Oath, that they're going to take an extra turn. And on that turn, they're either going to win or lose.
Yeah, you got to shoot your shot. Do it now or you're out.
And
Go for it,
sometimes
who cares?
you see like the rare card, Glorious End, just to stop someone else from winning, potentially at the cost of the game yourself.
Yeah, and like Drew was saying, you have to risk your life total sometimes. And these are some of the weirder cards in Magic, like Form of the Dragon and Form of the Dinosaur, which they make your life total, they usually drop it down to a static number and then give you some added effects. But this just like, this is your strategy, your end game. You're just going all in on this, trying to win with this card.
Yeah, you're willing to sacrifice your life. You're willing to sacrifice your lands. You've got cosmic larvae. You've got devastating summons. You don't care. As long as you can get to your opponent, anything goes.
Yeah, if you end the game with 10 lands or 0 lands, as long as you win the game,
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Like we said, red is willing to literally bet their life on it. And you see cards like Alyssa Auction and Mage's Contest, where that is actually what you're doing.
Yeah,
you are putting an
weird
auction
stuff.
for creatures or permanents, and you are spending your life in an auction to buy that card.
So red also kind of has this mantra that knowledge has a price. Card advantage is going to cost you. You don't just get to draw extra cards.
Yeah, this isn't blue.
No, it's not straight raw card draw. You got to do some sacrifices for it.
Yeah, and we see that in the what we call rummage mechanic. I don't think it's ever been like technically called rummage. It's kind of like it's the opposite of what the loot mechanic is that you see in blue, where you kind of throw away resources in order to get better ones. It's just out with the old, in with the new. You have to discard a
Hoping that
card.
you get a better one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Without the knowledge.
Yeah, you have to discard a card first, and then you're allowed to draw cards. And you see that with Rummaging Goblins, classic name, and Tormenting Voice.
Yeah, I think the mechanic was given the nickname off of Rummaging Goblin. So there's also one of the more famous
In
cards
that same vein, yeah.
in red is called Gamble. And this just symbolizes the idea that you have to gamble for what you need. And it's just a tutor for any card, but you have to discard something at random.
Sometimes the card that you just tutored.
A lot of the times the card that you just
My
tutored
poor
for.
mother. We
Yep.
all convinced her at the table. The best thing you can do right now is tutor for this card.
You have 6 cards in hand.
Put it
the
in your
likelihood-
hand.
She tutored for Purphoros.
And I
Discarded
grabbed it.
Purphoros.
But that's red. That's red for you. Sometimes
That's show business,
you shoot
baby.
your shot. Yeah.
Basically, you're just willing to sacrifice the resource that you have to
Yeah.
draw cards, right? We've got like
Yeah.
Aggressive Mining, Dark World, or Oracle, where it doesn't really matter what the cost is. Again, red it wants whatever it wants, and it's going to try and do whatever it can to get that.
Yeah, you just throw anything you can just to get some more cards.
Which I think WotC has tried to kind of give red a little teeny bit of an edge with this kind of feel in red by giving red the madness mechanic, where if you choose to discard these cards or if you have to discard these cards, you're at least allowed to play at that turn.
Yeah, I think that
Like a small way to combat the negative of tossing your cards.
as the resident madness player, it's a nice kind of like, hey, you're paying this extra cost, but you can fuel your resources, or you can use your resources as a fuel for other mechanics. And having the madness mechanic where you put it into exile and then you're allowed to cast it, especially since a lot of madness cards allow you to cast it for a cheaper cost than what the normal CMC is. I think like WotC's really trying to say, hey, we understand red isn't meant to just draw cards outright, but you can get an advantage from just discarding your
Yeah, instead of just pitching stuff that you don't need right now, you can actually get some value off of that stuff.
It's almost like red's version of cycling, where you still get some use out of getting rid of that card.
Yeah.
They've also got the famous mechanic, which is discarding everything and just trying again.
Yeah, these are the wheel effects, and we call that because of Wheel of Fortune. They printed it into a creature called Magus of the Wheel, and we've got cards like Molten Psyche, and there's a lot of wheel effects, but red is definitely the most prone to do it.
Yeah, this is the hardest of card draw in red. Is just discarding your entire hand and drawing a couple cards.
And it makes sense because it's
Usually 7.
kind of chaotic. You got to get rid of everything you had to
Yeah, and
try
And red is, I think, the best color to take advantage of this because the CMC of their cards are generally low enough that they can dump their entire hand, use wheels to discard, quote-unquote, their hand, which is going to be 0 at this point, and then draw another 7.
Yeah, just blowing all your burn spells for 5 mana and then wheeling again to get a new
Regrip.
grip. Yeah,
Yep.
Live or die by the wheel.
exactly.
Yep. That moves us to our second section, our mantra of red: everything burns.
Yeah, red doesn't want anything to slow them down. They're looking to the future, not the past. And since artifacts are relics of the past, they can go. We got Vandal Blast, Shatterstorm, and I think that red has this kind of emotional response where there is beauty in destruction.
Yeah. They also sort of live by the idea that we need to be free. And so not even the world can like hold us down. So this is sort of the color where you're going to find a lot of land destruction.
Yeah, I mean, Stone Rain has been printed I don't know how many times. It's just like the classic destroy a land in red.
Yep.
And this is extremely frowned upon in the Magic community, but it's something that OG Red relied on for answers. And so you don't see a lot of land destruction cards anymore.
I think it's frowned upon in the EDH community, where it's very, social and kind of casual.
It's frowned upon in most formats.
I don't know, man. You watch those Highlander guys and like modern players. Everybody has the mantra of like, I will do anything to win this game. They'll burn.
I think it's still frowned
down.
upon. I think that people still look at it as just like, really, you're just going to stop me from being able to play the game at all. Like, yeah, everyone's going to use strip mine if they can, but I think that it's generally like not necessarily taboo, but it's just like it seems like an underhanded trick for a lot
I
of
think people still do it. They just don't like it when it's done to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
It is kind of fucked up, but I love it.
But they have so many different ways to do it. You've got Epicenter, Avalanche Riders, Stone Rain, like I said. Like there's a lot of reprints that have been seen that I think almost every single set has a red land destruction spell, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're used at all, but it's 100% fits red.
Yeah, it's kind of one of Red's way to just slow down your opponents if they're accelerating ahead of you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a different kind of answer and way to deal with people. And then another way of dealing with people is just punishing anything that people do. And so this is cards, really messed up cards like Mana Barbs, which just basically brings back mana burn. And then there's cards that punish a lot of land ramp, so a lot of green players. But these are cards like Zozu the Punisher and Blood Moon. I think a lot of people know Blood Moon because it just shuts off a lot of decks.
Yeah, if you're multicolored,
read it more. But
if you're playing a multicolored deck and you see Blood Moon come out, you're host a little bit.
If you're not running red, you're probably boned. Yeah. And then there's a lot of cards that punish artifacts, like we talked about earlier. But one of the newer ones is Treasure Nabber, which I love. And it just, whenever you tap your Soul Ring, I'm gonna steal it. It's my Soul Ring now, at least until my turn.
I kind of like that card. I've never seen that card.
Yeah, dude, especially because it's Goblin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and red, like we said, everything burns. And with that, if you have to, just destroy the old world to start a new one, right? Like, just blow everything up. We've got Jocko Hops, Decree of Annihilation, World Fire. Like, I don't care if it's your lands, if it's your creatures, artifacts, everything burns.
I wish World Fire was not banned.
World Fire's super nice.
Well, and it harkens back to like you were saying, Drew, the way that red functions. It's so fast. If you can even out that playing field and just wipe everything out, you have a good chance of being able to take off a little quicker than your opponents.
Yeah, it's generally a bit easier for red to restart. Like, as long as you haven't burned your entire hand and start top decking, then you're going to be able to continue to just pump out threats that a lot of other colors take a while to get to.
Yeah, because you're just low, fast. Just go.
Yeah, there's no setup in red. We're not setting up our board for a strategic action. We're murdering our opponent.
Yeah, we're ready to sacrifice our board anytime.
Yeah. And kind of in that vein, we've got Cory's favorite idea when it comes to red is just chaos control. Right? Like, throwback to Sanic. But chaos really does reign supreme, I think, in red more than any other color, just because it's able to take advantage of chaos a lot better. And also it's just enables it so much more than any other color.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up. So chaos takes a lot of different forms, and we tried to divide this up as well as we could. The first section we kind of have is chaos can turn cowards into giants. So this is the idea that it's fun, but it's also risk.
This is kind of the idea that you're bringing chaos upon yourself in order to get an advantage, right? The idea of turning cowards into giants is that you have 0-1 cowards, I believe, and you turn them into giants, which are generally like 4/4, 5/5 plus.
Yeah, so these are cards like Reality Scramble, and Chaos Warp sort of fits into this. It's just things you're changing smaller things that you don't really care about into bigger things, just like running them through your deck. And there's the messy chaos, which is the shit that I love. And these are cards like Confusion in the Ranks and Grip of Chaos, which is
stupid as fuck.
It just starts messing with the rules.
Yeah, chaos for all. Everyone kind of just has this weird technical chaos that it's difficult to figure out. But again, red is going to be able to capitalize off it better than anyone else.
Yeah, it's going to be up on the screen, but I'm going to read Confusion in the Ranks just so that people in the audio version really know how fucked up we're going here. Whenever an artifact, creature, or enchantment comes into play, its controller chooses target permanent another player controls that shares a type with it and exchange control of those permanents. So every time you play something, you have to swap it with someone else's permanent.
Yeah, Confusion in the Ranks is kind of one that is very epitomized in our play group of what chaos is, because Cory played it in a Nor in the Wary deck.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it briefly on the show, but basically anytime you want a permanent, you need to play 2 of those. So that way you play it, it gets switched. You play the second one, and then the one that you actually want, which is the first one you played, comes back to you.
Yeah, it's another way to like create this weird math that your opponents have to go through to like figure out how do I even do what my
Yeah, you're just like,
wants
if
to
I
do.
play anything, it's just going to get taken.
Yeah, it's to me, Confusion of the Ranks is very much a red counterspell in that when I play against a blue control deck, I know that I need to play 2 spells per turn in order to beat through all of the counterspells that my opponents are going to have. I need to be able to make a threat that they're going to respond to, and then also have something else that comes out that they can't answer.
Yeah. And then the next kind of chaos is what we refer to as helpful chaos. So these are things like Chaos Warp, Impossibility Storm, and Wild Evocation, which you Chaos Warp, you get rid of something, but it can come back even worse or harmless. Possibility Storms makes everybody just start going nuts. And then Wild Evocation just copies spells. And a lot of the spell copying spells would go into this category too, where it's just adding on to these effects.
Right. And the kind of idea with Helpful Chaos is that everyone is allowed to have their things, right? Whether it's spells, permanents, whatever. But maybe not the one that you want, or maybe not exactly as you wanted it. Or maybe I get a copy of it as well.
Exactly, yeah. Just weird stuff like that.
Yeah. And so the next section here, I put in specifically, I think, for Cory, it's just some men just want to watch the world burn.
So I used to have a Northernweary Chaos Commander deck, and I ran all of these cards. But these are just the big, heavy hitter cards of just basically restarting the game. These are cards like Scrambleverse and Thieves Auction and Whims of the Fates and Warp World, where you literally just shuffle the entire just game board, and nobody knows what they're going to get. Sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes all your lands go away. And sometimes you give Perforos to somebody who's going to win with it on the turn. You give it to the elf deck. Like, who knows?
It's the classic Idaho quote, hold my beer.
Yeah, it's like you thought everything we were talking about before was chaotic?
Yeah.
Hold my beer and watch this.
Oh, yeah. It's a total headache, and everyone hates it. But I love it.
Yeah, there's a reason why that deck ended up being dismantled.
Yeah.
It really was kind of frustrating, but I think that if you're able to take advantage of it, like you built that deck more as a chaos deck rather than just like taking advantage of the chaos.
Yeah.
And I think that had you made it more advantageous to yourself, it would have been a much stronger deck.
Yeah, it was extreme budget. It was just cards that I had in bulk raise
I
because
still
nobody
think you should have
buys these
kept
cards.
it though, just for like the card shop. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it's
it gets
literally
old.
one
in the
It was one of the
playground,
decks that I was like, hey, let's go.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the decks where, like, you talk about meme decks, and that's like strictly a meme deck where it's just like, this is going to be fun, and we're going to talk about this later, but it's not necessarily going to be good or do anything.
I was gonna say, if you go play with 2 or 3 random people at a card shop, all 3 of those guys are like, you would not believe the fucking deck I played against this guy.
Yeah, I'm slowly building it back, but I think I'm going to make a Rakdos command or
Ooh, tight.
Rakdos chaos deck.
All right, to get back on track here, we've kind of got this idea that chaos is great, but coin flips are mostly fair. And we've got fair in quotes here because there's a lot of ways that you can manipulate them.
Yeah.
But the idea here is that you have a 50-50 chance to get something good on these coin flip cards. You got Fiery Gambit, Mirror March, and the idea generally is just there's a huge risk playing into it, but the reality is that the potential benefit is going to outweigh what that risk is.
Yeah.
Take damage if you lose, get something great if you win, or
Yeah, or just nothing
Or-
happened.
yeah,
You just
exactly.
wasted a turn.
Yeah.
But I think coin flips are just when people think of chaos, they think a lot about coin flipping cards.
Yeah.
Because you really don't know what's going to happen.
yeah, the idea of it just being
You,
random.
you
is
could
like,
get
what are you
50
doing?
coin flips in a row and just totally hose everybody, or you get nothing the whole game.
And while chaos is good and coin flips are good, chaotic coin flips are even better, right? It's got to be. So we got planar chaos, game of chaos, things like that, where you have a lot of coin flips or just a real kind of pain in the ass way of exacerbating what annoyance the coin flips are.
Yeah, we didn't put the card in here, but there's a
I've
card.
never read Game of Chaos, but it's so fucked up. That's brutal. I love it.
There's a win con with coin flips where every time if you win enough coin flips in a row or something, I think it's like 10.
You just win.
You just win the game automatically. And you can abuse these things. There's a lot of coin flip cards. Like
So
cards
we've got to have a
stuff
storm
like that.
count die and a coin flip die. I've got 8 in a row, boys.
So the last section of chaos that we have is just the pain and punishment. And these aren't sort of mixing up the game rules and flipping coins to do cool shit. It's just punishing things, but fairly and at random.
Yeah, there's a kind of an element to chaos which harkens back to the fact that neutral chaos is even.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone bleeds the same, and while it's not strictly chaotic, it evens the playing field in the way that chaotic cards actually do as well. And so there's kind of this nice balance between chaos and these cards that are even punishes.
So this is kind of, it leans into the idea where if you don't know who to attack, you just roll a die and then attack them. So everyone has a chance to get hurt. So these are cards like Witch Hunt and Elkin Lair. And then there's board wipes that hurt everyone, like Bear the Heavens, Devastating Dreams, Tyrant of Discord. Just really mean cards. But sometimes they won't do a lot. And sometimes they will mess everything up. But they usually mess everybody up.
The last kind of theme we have here for red is just that combat is at the core. A lot of people, when they think of red, and Garion's kind of harkened to it when he talked about the red deck wins strategy.
Yep.
It's just that red wants to fight.
Yep.
Like red is, I think, at its strongest when it is enabling combat. It is making the decisions for when to fight, how to fight, and who fights.
Yeah. Even in like the big red decks and the medium red decks, like they're big, fat, fighting dragons and warriors and giants and shit that just want to bash face.
Yeah. And kind of this idea is just that the strong will win and the weak will lose. And we'll see that in green on the next episode. But red has this...
Red is a different way to look at it.
Right. And so red sees that there's a really strong emphasis on high power, and they don't really care about toughness. We don't really care about the creatures dying. We saw that at the top of the show. But we see cards like Nova Chaser, Ball Lightning, super famous.
Yeah.
Blistering Firecat. We're just trying to do as much damage as possible as fast as possible.
Yeah, and Drew brought up a point earlier today that a good way to look at these is think of them as burn spells, but on a creature.
I think that's why when we talk about Commander, it seems that red has fallen off as being one of the stronger colors, specifically because you have 3 opponents and 90 damage or 120 damage to do. Instead of back in the day, the 1v1 formats with only 20 damage, if you pulled out Blistering Firecat and they didn't have an answer, that's nearly half their life total. You know what I mean? That was a very strong card. So, like, these things are extremely strong 1v1. They seem a little weaker in Commander, but I think red has ways to capitalize on those if you can, build your deck correctly.
Yeah. The creatures aren't made to last. They're just made to hit really, really hard.
Exactly, yeah.
Which makes red so scary.
Yeah, the damage that red can produce out of nowhere is alarming.
Yeah, and that sort of ties in this next thing we're going to talk about, which is fire breathing. And this idea of just pumping your guys.
Yeah, we don't really care about toughness. We just want maximum power.
So the classic one is Shivan Dragon. Is that the first card with fire breathing?
Yeah, I think that Cory and I just had a discussion off the show, which was that Shivan Dragon was kind of the first creature that we saw with this fire breathing mechanic. And then following that, they made the card fire breathing, which is where we actually get the name off of it. And so fire breathing is an enchantment. It's actually an aura.
Yeah.
That is attached to a creature, and it gives that creature to pay 1 red to give the creature +1/+0. And so we see that and kind of renditions of that on creatures where all we care about is just that fire breathing ability, where we're pumping up the power as much as we possibly can with as little as mana as possible, just to really be efficient in how much damage we're just throwing at our opponents.
Yeah, instead of playing a spell that turn, you're going to add 5 extra power to hopefully win the game.
The important part is that you can pay more than 1 mana.
Yeah, and it really messes up combat math as well.
Yeah.
Which is something that red loves to do.
Yeah, so you see this a lot on dragons, and they've been slowly putting out more and more different red creatures. It's just a classic red mechanic at this point.
Another mechanic or sort of
trickery
that red kind of encompasses that we see in one of Cory's newer decks is this idea of endless combat. So you've got what's the dude's name? The Raise Boar.
Ilharg the Raise Boar.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's a real bastard. And I've gotten commander damaged out more than once.
Oh, I got him out on turn 3 the other night when we were playing.
Ooh.
And turns to I just scooped. Because I played Godo, the Warlord.
Oh, Godo plus that.
And then just started shooting him up. It was bad.
Ugh.
So red just feels most alive when we're fighting, right? Like if I'm playing red, like when I'm in the combat zone and I'm just beating face in the red zone, like that is just when I'm having the most fun in red. So the idea is just, why stop doing that?
Yeah, if I can swinging out once is great, but swinging out 2 or 3 times a turn, ooh.
Yeah, and so we've got this concept the assault effect, right? Named after relentless assault and aggravated assault. Basically, it's just bonus combat.
Yeah, there's a lot of different cards that do this, but they're just under the assault effect. So there's cards like Seize the Day and Fury of the Horde, just other cards that it doesn't matter, discard your hand, just take more combats.
Yeah. It's another thing that creates a really hectic combat math environment for your opponent. They don't know who to block or where to block because, shit, I got to do this again, not next turn, now. Like, it's going to come right
your
back.
Big guy that you thought was safe, he's going to die again if you block with him.
Yeah, and there's lots of ways that Cory was talking about to get more combat stats. He talked about Godo, the Warlord. You got Hellkite Charger, and you've even got like things that where it's just like you're trying to give everything you have to help the team win. And you've got Breath of Fury in there, Combat Celebrant, which I mean it has the exert ability, so literally giving everything that it possibly can without sacrificing itself.
Flavor right there.
Yeah, and it's just exerting itself just to keep the fighting going. And if you thought Red wasn't all about combat, from that we also have this idea that Red forces combat. Red really is trying to push people into it.
Yeah, not just you, but everybody. So these are cards like Territorial Hellkite, Reckless Brute, Hellraiser Goblin, just cards that literally say must attack if able, or all creatures must attack.
Yeah, it's kind of
holding back.
Yeah, it's kind of the Juggernaut idea, where it must attack each combat.
And so if we go back to I had a lot of these cards in my Chaos deck, and these are cards that make everyone attack, including your opponents, which a lot of the time backfires because people don't like swinging out.
So if they're going to swing out, they're going to kill the person that's making them swing out.
Yeah, this is why Pro Strat play this after combat so you keep up your blockers.
Right.
So these are cards like Grand Melee, War's Toll, Goblin Spymaster, which is a really fun one, Avatar of Slaughter.
Part of the Avatar cycle, very
Brutal.
cool, very, very good. But we have this, I think, general thought in Red, which is just fighting is fun. Like, combat is fun. Join us. No, seriously, you don't have a choice.
It's just I don't care what you're doing. We're fighting. Let's go.
Yeah. It's like in direct opposition of the blue deck that wants to like set up the board and create all this trickery and shit.
Set
It's
up
like
your walls.
Yeah,
swing.
and what I love about this is that when you're forcing your opponents to attack, you're giving yourself a better attack in that because they're not going to have blockers available, right? Unless they just barely played something that's summoning sickness, they're always going to have to attack with it. And so it's kind of this high risk, high reward. Like, yeah, they're going to punch you in the face super hard, but hopefully you've got the creatures that have higher power that are just really going to swing back.
Well, and Red has a lot of that trample and haste stuff, so it can come out a little quicker than other people and potentially still deal damage even with the blocking occurring. Yeah.
Yeah, and this can also be a very political effect where if the person in the lead has a lot of life or they just have a really set up board presence and just opening them up so everyone can gang up on them, it's really hard to fight against that.
Yeah, and we see in Commander especially, we've got the goad mechanic, which is very unusual.
A weird mechanic.
Yeah, but we see it in Disrupt Decorum. So the goad mechanic is that until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you. So Red is not only manipulating the fact that there's combat, whether they want to or not, but they can't even attack you, so you aren't getting punished for it.
Yeah, it's just
sowing discord.
Exactly, safe chaos. But this is also on one of my favorite cards is Grenzo Havoc Raiser.
He's really good.
Yeah, which he can just goad people out of nowhere.
Red, because it's so combat centric, also likes to punish cowardice. So we've got cards like Instill Furor, Mad Dog, See Red.
And sometimes that's punishing your own creatures.
Yeah.
Right? Like See Red, it's an aura, you put it on your creature, and if they don't attack, then you sacrifice the enchantment. But it gives your creature a buff and first strike to make sure that it can get through damage and continue to attack each time.
Yeah. And these are cards, you're going to be attacking with your creatures anyway. So you're stoked to have the buff.
Yeah, these are just basically extra cards with mechanics that if you don't attack, they're just going to die. And these are similar to cards that we talked about, like Sacrifice at your end step. It's just you need to attack with them every turn, basically.
Yep. Very combat centric. And along this general just constant theme that we're seeing in Red is one of my personal favorites is the stop hitting yourself idea, which is these threaten effects. And we call it threaten because of the OG card Threaten, which you gain control of target creature until end of turn. It gains haste. And so you're able to take other people's stuff and then attack them with it, which I absolutely love, right? We've got Threaten, Active Treason, Hijack, so it's not just creatures. We got artifacts and permanents in there. Active Aggression, which I think is my favorite one just because it's 3 and then 2 Phyrexian red, so you can just pay life for it, which red is all about.
Oh, yeah, red doesn't give a fuck.
And then we've got the fact that creatures can do it too. We've got Zealous Conscript, which is OG, like it's so good.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous card.
Captivating Crew in the recent sets, just very strong mechanic to take your opponent's creatures, hit them in the face with it. If you've got Sacrifice Outlets, it's even better.
Yeah, this sort of leans an idea of getting everybody to attack. Like, if you're not going to attack with them, I'm going to steal them and attack with them. Like, I'll see your best stuff, I'll see your worst stuff, so you can't block. Let's just get it.
Yeah, and if you're going out, we're going out swinging.
Hell
Yep.
yeah.
So red likes to do it as much damage as possible. Like we said, they like to steal everybody's creatures for the win. Probably the most famous, especially in Commander, is Insurrection. Just steal the whole board and
Yep.
swing with it.
If you don't win with Insurrection, I don't
You're
know.
getting murdered.
Yeah, we talked about it in the 2011 Commander deck list.
Yep.
I think it was the Zedru deck that had Insurrection, and it's such an insanely strong win con that card, I mean, it's like $8-9 right now. Like, it's always going to be a very strong card in Commander because one of the decks is always going to have creatures, right? Even if you're playing against like an enchantment deck and a sorcery deck, the other deck probably has loads of creatures, and you're just trying to push through as much damage as possible on one turn to kill the person who has the creatures or maybe the person who doesn't. And it's a political card. It's a very strong win con. Like, there's so much going on with Insurrection.
Yeah,
That it's very
it's hard to plan against it.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, even
you're
if
building your board and suddenly it just gets taken away and you're dead.
Yeah, my
Even
favorite-
if the board is like not that full, it's still just such a huge swing in the tempo of that game that everybody just, I mean, if you don't win with it, unfortunately you become a target, but it's just so strong.
Yeah.
That it's,
You're usually taking at least one person out,
Yeah.
and it's usually the threat.
Yeah, and my favorite part about Insurrection is that it doesn't target.
Yep,
Right.
it's just, you get it. Just
All
bring it over.
control.
We're swinging.
Yeah, and while we're trying to just punch through as much damage as possible, Cory's got on here the double damage effects, which
Yep.
I used to run a deck that was centered around Dictate of the Twin Gods.
Yep, I do remember that.
And that deck was so much fun just because out of nowhere, you play Dictate of the Twin Gods, cut a couple extra mana out, you Lightning Bolt, Lightning Strike, anything that you can just to throw out damage.
Taking chunks at
and
people.
all of these effects, Furnace of Wrath, Gratuitous Violence, trying to make sure that all of the damage that you do is not just going to be relevant, but it's going to just make the game end.
it's going to be impactful.
Yeah, and these are another thing that's like high risk, high reward because they usually double every source of damage. There's a couple cards that double like red sources, which you can take more advantage of. But this usually just cuts the game time in half because everybody's going.
Yeah, I'm trying to like. Me and my brother are trying to like coach my dad into his Mogus deck. He's got Mogus God of the Slaughter. He's trying to build a commander deck around him. The idea of racing people to the death. You know what I mean? Like red doesn't care if it loses life. It doesn't care if it loses creatures as long as you lose life and creatures quicker than they do. And these cards are like perfect for that.
Yeah.
Dictate.
I can deal
Twin
more
Gods.
damage, so let's speed this up and I'll kill you quick.
Yeah, Dictate actually has Mogus on it. It's
Yep.
It's
Slayer. And I think
Mogus and Eros. Yeah, those are the Twin Gods. And I mean, I love the card. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It also has Flash, so it just comes out of nowhere.
There's a really good story that I love to tell is our buddy, we were playing forever ago with our buddy Michael. And of course we were all really drunk. And he had a double damage deck, but it was just really, really bad because it had a lot of cards that just did damage to everything and everybody. And he may have miscounted his mana and killed nobody except himself.
Oh, he was trying to do the suicide deck.
Yeah, he was trying to just get everybody, but
Yeah, he was trying to do the
miscounted
ultimate draw deck.
his life total and only killed himself.
Yeah, I do remember that deck because
But
part
how
of-
fucking red is that? It's like,
I know, right?
I'm burning everybody.
yeah, it's super fucking metal. And I actually themed part of my Nekusar deck around that because the ultimate goal that I have with Nekusar is to make everyone die at the same time.
Yep.
And I haven't been able to accomplish it yet, but seeing Michael attempt that just made me like, I want to do it. Like, I have this dream. And that's super fucking red to just be like, everyone dies when I say, and that time is now.
The best part is because it was so early in the game too. He was just coming in so hot, and he just had to sit out for the rest of the game. he was on beer duty.
I mean, to be fair, that kind of ties into our next idea, which is that Red has this courage, fearlessness, recklessness, whatever you want to call it. And they're trying to make sure that it's rewarded, right? You're rewarded from attacking, from being aggressive, from just throwing down damage.
So we already mentioned Ilharg, the race boar. We've got Krenko, Tin Street, Kingpin. These guys, they just want to attack.
Yeah, so this is the newer Cranko
Yep.
that doesn't double your goblins. He just makes goblins at the beginning of combat. And then you start swinging.
And you get stronger, and the stronger
you
you
make
get, the
more
more
and more
goblins.
goblins, yeah.
Like, it's a very, very strong card that just gets out of control very quickly.
Seriously.
I was going to say it's bad when there's another Cranko that's worse than him, and you say he's not the strongest because
Yeah.
he's still goddamn strong.
Yeah.
Like, the other Cranko's better, but wow.
This one gets out of control, but that one gets out of control twice as fast.
And then also just from attacking and being aggressive, you get card advantage. We've got Itali Primal Storm, the red dinosaur. Very, very strong card. Can be your commander. Like, it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, she's actually a really fun creature because it's card advantage, it's attacking, and it's a little bit of chaos. Because
It almost
playing
feels
things
like
off of
card draw,
library.
but it's not. It's like the
Yeah.
chaotic card draw. It's
Exactly.
Like,
It's
I'll
just
draw
like-
your cards instead.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exactly what I think red feels like it wants to do.
Yeah.
Not exactly what the player wants to do, but what red
Yeah,
as a
'cause
theme wants to do.
You don't know what you're gonna get. You're just gonna swing and get some cards, and
try
hopefully
it
you can
out.
play them.
And red has this like hint of recursion. Like, there's not a lot of it, but generally it's going to be around instants and sorceries.
Yeah.
We've got Past and Flames here, and Past and Flames is just a phenomenal card.
Oh yeah, it's usually a game finisher.
Yeah. And then we've got Ramp off of Captain Lannery Storm, where again, being aggressive is going to be almost a win con because you start to generate mana, which just ramps you into better, bigger spells, and it gets out of control very quickly.
So obviously there's a couple other ramp effects in red, like Seeding Song, which is a ritual, and Skirk Prospector, which is a goblin ramp card. But Captain Lannery Storm we put on here because she's combat ramp, which I think is the most kind of red ramp.
Yeah, I think it's very thematic in red, but also it's just thematic to the pirates that just they always want to attack. Like the raid mechanic
Yeah,
is
just
just
get
so essential to the
some
pirates.
booty.
And so you have combat tricks, flash creatures, etc. that she's going to enable just because she's generating you more mana than what the opponent's going to expect.
Yeah, and ramp is definitely not one of red's strong suits, so you gotta kind of run what you got.
You got to get there however it works, and sometimes just punch him in the face a few times and get your ramp.
Yep.
So I just stole a little taste of Drew's Rogue Double Chocolate Stout. It's too good.
It is very good. I think this is probably the biggest bomber that I've ever gone through as fast. Like,
Yeah, it's definitely way easier to drink than some of the stouts we've had.
What percent
We've had a
is
lot of really
9%.
good stouts.
9%. Damn.
It's
A full pint?
literally
Yep.
just
It's
like
pint 9.
eating some chocolate.
I think there's a pint 6,
No, pint 9.4.
pint 9.
Yeah.
9.4.
It's a big old boy is what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a good sized beer, but it's definitely delicious. I love chocolate, period. And I prefer bitter, kind of semi-sweet style chocolate than I do just like normal milk chocolate bullshit. So this is right up my alley. I absolutely love it. The chocolate is first and foremost what you taste. It's got a nice bitterness to it, probably a little more than what you're generally used to, right, Garion? 60 IBUs is kind of up there.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's weird because
scale.
this is a soft 60 to me because it doesn't feel as bitter as some of the other stouts we've had. Like
yeah,
the first, it hits you with the chocolate, and then immediately after that, if you're a dark beer drinker, it's malt, which is bitter, but it's not sharp. You know what I mean? It's like a really palatable, chocolatey hint of coffee bitter.
Yeah, and it has a nice finish to it that IPAs are generally known for, where that bitterness kind of lingers. But again, it's this kind of like roasted coffee, dark chocolate bitterness to it that's very smooth and just kind of settles down really nicely.
Yeah,
Like, every
it's
single
not
time you
the
go back
I was
for it-
just chewing on a tree bitter.
I was just eating a bar of chocolate bitter,
Yeah.
which is delightful.
Yeah.
And then Garion, you were drinking it's a saison. Like I was gonna say, it's a funky saison, but it's just a saison.
Yeah.
Like it's a nice farmhouse ale.
Yep, it was the Upslope Brewing Company Blood Orange Saison. It's an ale brewed with blood oranges and spice. And as I drink it, the spice came out a little more. It says right on the back of the can, it's got pink peppercorns. I never detected that with my
I barely
crude
even
palate.
got the grapefruit, let alone some peppercorns.
Grapefruit. You mean blood orange?
Blood orange. My bad.
Yeah.
Redo that one. Sorry.
I mean, that shows you how little I got it. I didn't even remember what the flavor was.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really super blood orangey either.
I mean, there was like an acidic sweetness to it that I could taste, like just on that first taste that I had. And the smell is just, the smell just takes over with the saison. It is that funky, fresh farmhouse ale.
pretty weedy, not in the sense of like a super bland American wheat beer, but you can tell kind of that the base is not a bitter malt. You know what I mean? There's no roasting involved. But it's just overall, I thought it was a really spunky, funky beer. I liked it.
Yep, and I had the Two Towns Cider House Two Thorns, which is a raspberry rose cider. And we said it tasted just like wine. Turns out it tasted just like wine the whole way through.
Yeah, the initial taste on it was very much a cider. You know, you taste, like I said, to me, it tasted like those weird rose candies, those rose gummies. And then the raspberry is kind of like a secondary taste on it. Very fruity sweetness to it, not like a sugary sweetness. It's like definitely a fruit sweetness to it. And then the finish on it is just wine. It's weird, but
I loved it.
Yeah, not
so
unenjoyable.
Yeah. It has an in-mouth and then a swallow. So while it's still in your mouth, it's very cidery. And then as soon as you swallow, it's got that back end of wine. For a guy who's not a wine guy, it was delicious.
I can't really disagree with you there.
Yeah, I was just, I don't know. It's between the chocolate and this one. Which one I like more?
Yeah, I will have to.
Was my favorite.
Yeah, I'll have to say that I agree that those are the top two beers of the show. The Saison, I'm just never going to be like, that's my favorite beer of the show, I think, just because Saisons aren't my jam.
Yeah.
I'll drink them.
I like really sour Saisons, but that one just, I don't know, didn't really have a lot going for it. It was okay. It was good.
Yeah, it was okay.
It wasn't anything crazy.
Just a little funky.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, let's get back to Red here. We're talking about game mechanics next. I mean, Red is kind of simple, right? We're talking about the creatures first. We've got goblins, dragons, phoenixes.
You got giants, minotaurs, Viashino. Viashino. They're an old.
Yeah, they're like lizard dudes.
people.
There's barbarians, devils, gremlins.
And of course, manticores, which is a more recent thing to Red.
Yeah.
The classic kobolds.
Kobolds of Keep, right?
Yeah, that's my jam.
Those ones.
And we got some warriors splashed in there. We've got some very, very red mechanics here.
Yes.
The most red.
Yeah. Like these are things like haste,
Yep.
which is embodies red so well.
First strike and double strike.
Yeah. And yeah, red is a lot of just swing, just get in.
Yep.
Not a lot of protection kind of mechanics.
Yeah, there's menace in there, trample. Of course, we got the fire breathing mechanic that we talked about.
And then less keywords, more card mechanics. We've got things like direct damage and land destruction and the threaten and theft effects and then the extra attack steps.
And the occasional extra turn.
Yeah.
Yep. The mana ramp and the mana fixing, it relies heavily on artifacts. Red is not necessarily a ramp color.
But it does have some nice instants and sorceries that will get you there.
Yep. And that certainly embodies Red's personality of, I don't want to set things up. I just want it now. Let's just do it. So we've got Desperate Ritual, Seething Song, Skirk Prospector. They tend to be, a lower CMC curve. And so in theory, it's not needed as much.
Yeah, just one or two extra mana might be just enough to just get you through.
Yeah, putting a dragon out 2 turns early is going to be a lot more important than having that 2 extra mana every single turn.
Yeah. So another thing that Red also struggles with is card draw. And by this we mean hard card draw. Just draw 10 cards. Boom, done. You have to really work for it. So you have to use things like the rummage mechanic, which is where you discard first and then draw a card.
Yep.
Impulsive draw mechanic, which is you exile it, usually until end of turn, and so you have to play it that turn or else it's gone.
You hope that you can cast it.
And then the most famous ones are the wheel effects. So these are Wheel of Fortune, stuff like Dragon Mage, Maggers of the Wheel, stuff like that.
Yep. And in theory, there's really easy ways to exploit those cards. But if you think about them as just a mechanic in themselves, things like Wheel of Fortune is the idea of giving up, like we said before, all of your resources in order to try and get something better.
It's literally rummaging your hand away and
Yeah.
drawing a whole new one.
Yeah, hoping to get something better than what you had, but who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, you got to risk it.
Yeah, Red has very direct removal, right? We've got burn spells and just direct damage, lightning bolt. Just, I think the classic one.
Yep.
Your 1 mana, 3 damage to any target. Very strong, very good. We've got artifact destruction and Vandal Blast and
Shatterstorm,
a lot of ways to spread out the artifact destruction. And we've got land destruction in here, impending disaster, stone rain, etc. Like there's a lot of ways to do these things, and Red is very good at replicating them.
Impending disaster.
I just read it. I was like, God damn. Makes everybody go, no, I don't want to do anything. God bless you. We've also got some board wipes in red. A lot of them are like direct damage board wipes, so it's just direct damage spells that goes across the board. We've got things like Blasphemous Act. You mentioned earlier Shatterstorm for artifacts, Epicenter for lands, and then there's just Fuck It All, and we've got Obliterate, which destroys all three of them.
So another thing red likes to use are a lot of instant sorceries, and this ties into when it's played with blue and Izzet colors. And red instant sorceries are a lot different than blue, or for that matter, any other color instant sorceries. So, like Drew was saying, there's a lot of burn spells, just direct damage. There's a lot of weird stuff that copies effects.
Like Fork.
Yep, Fork's one, Reverberate. And then we mentioned a lot of them earlier, but there's extra attack, instant sorceries.
The occasional extra turns.
Yeah, just...
And then, of course, Cory's favorite, the chaotic or just random outcome effects like Scrambleverse.
Yeah, and you could almost consider these board wipes because they just change everything, but they're just best left under the chaos umbrella.
Red's also a really good color for token generation, mostly under goblins, dragons, and elementals.
Yeah, when it paired with white, generally it's going to be soldiers.
Yeah.
Like, they have different ways of doing it, but goblins are going to be your central token from red. You're going to get those occasional dragons, and then elementals when it comes to planeswalkers, I think is very, very common.
Yeah, a lot of Chandras make them.
Yeah, I think if you look at like all the colors, a lot of people think of white and green for tokens. But then the word goblin comes up and you go, oh yeah, red does that too.
Each color kind of has their token that they're really good at making, and goblins is the red one.
Yep.
Yeah, and like we said, we got planeswalkers, of course, which falls under our umbrella of that which encapsulates it all. We've got Koth of the Hammer, which cares about mountains and land destruction, things like that. We've got Chandra, Torch of Defiance, who is just...
She's the burn lady.
Yeah, she's very, very good. She's one of the key 4 ability planeswalkers. Those aren't very common, but when they're good, they're insane.
Yeah, I'm just going to read her real quick. So she's Chandra, Torch of Defiance, 2 red for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. +1, exile a top card of your library. You may cast a card. If you don't, Chandra of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent.
So we've got direct damage and impulsive draw.
Another +1 is add 2 red to your mana pool. So that's some ramp. And then -3 deals 4 damage to target creature.
More direct damage in there.
And then -7, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player.
And often that cares more about instant sorceries than other spells.
Yeah, so she just does a little bit of everything except for land destruction and chaos. But I don't think there's a chaos planeswalker.
Not really, no. But
Yet.
we also have a kind of sub-theme in red, which is that red sometimes cares about artifacts. And that's not very common, but we see the Ready Scrap Savant, and like he brings it home hard.
Yeah, he's a heavy hitter. Red is one of the best at destroying artifacts and also the best at just recurring them and getting the most out of them. But it's recycling, basically. And Ready does that very, very well.
Everyone should recycle.
Yeah.
The Ready is a leader in the community.
We've also got a couple cards that aren't planeswalkers, but the command cycle. So we've got Incendiary Command for red. And Fiery Confluence. These are cards that don't fall under the Planeswalker category, but also just sort of encapsulate everything that red wants to do and cares about.
Yeah, and the red ones aren't nearly as good as the other ones, just because they're limited, at least in EDH, for how much impact they have.
Unfortunately, red is so focused on direct damage that it makes it very hard for red to compete in a 4-player game. Which is why you find very seldom mono red decks. A lot of times they're sort of melded into some other colors that can help support them.
Yeah, they drift away from burn usually and rely more on other things.
But red just does such a good job of its red things that you can't help but just sit in awe in the damage.
Yeah, I think that it'd be difficult to argue against this next statement I'm going to say, which is that mono red is going to be good in basically every format. It's never going to be one of the weaker ones. It'll always be either middle to high strength. And I mean, literally every format can use a mono red deck to effectiveness.
Yeah.
Whether that's EDH, modern, standard, there's always going to be an RDW deck. Red deck wins.
Yep.
And it's going to be decent. And you always have to prepare for that in your meta.
Yeah, it's always going to work. It's just going to sometimes go about things in a different way.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of the deck archetypes that is really good at balancing a meta, because if you have like heavy control or slow decks, then REW comes out and just swings so fast that it's just going to dominate.
Yeah, it's just going to up the tempo of your games.
I think that's why red,
people use
like a
lot
mono
of
red, red beat deck, red wins does so well in, like you said, in every format, because it's so unique and it's so hard to combat. It does what it does, and if you can't keep up, you get murdered.
One of the best things to fight mono red is with more mono red.
Yeah, a fast deck kind of has to be combated by a.
You can only have so many counter spells in your hand.
Yeah, when you have 6 1-drop 2/2s, like that starts to become a house very quickly. It's a clock that you have to answer somehow, and sometimes a 1 mana deal 2 damage is exactly what you need. Good old shot.
Yeah, I think before we reiterate the Mark Rosewater quote, I think for me, especially when I'm playing against red or playing with red, what I think of as like the red staple or the red like banner is fast, right? It does all these things. It does burn. It does some tokens. It does all these things, but it does it quickly. Red does not want to last to turn 10, 15. Red wants to kill you now. So if you're playing against mono red, just know where your clock's at.
Just try and drag it out.
Yeah. For me, like mono red is one of my go-tos in like draft environments, just because I know it's going to be reliable. I know it's just. I mean, I don't know if I've played in a format where mono red doesn't work. Like if I can draft mono red, one, it helps my mana base. I run 16, 15 lands, and I just go to town. I just go as fast as possible, and it's effective. And I can't really say that I'm able to do that with any other color.
Nope.
Yeah, like I love direct damage, and I've made 3 mono red EDH decks at this point. So I'm obviously into red. That's the only monocolor decks I've made. And just making them has made me appreciate exactly what red does a lot more, and what all the other colors do.
Yeah, before we started this episode, I told you guys like red's my least favorite color, and I think that's to splash as a secondary or third color. But yeah, like you said, mono red I feel like is just so linear and so aggressive that you can't help but just have fun.
Yeah, like mono red legitimately is just a beast in its own, and if you don't think about it, then it's going to sneak up on you out of nowhere, and it is going to kill you faster than you even realized you could be dying.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we've talked about before is when new people start Magic, I think red is the easiest color to jump on because it's just go. Yeah,
I think red and green are definitely the go-tos for it, and red, because of its simplicity and because it's so straightforward and just always be dealing damage to your opponent, is that I think people are able to pick up on it very quickly.
Yeah, combat is such a heavy focus. It's just fight, go, go.
Yeah.
Well, that is our take on what red is. We've got a very simple summary here on the kind of the lore and the mechanics behind red. But before we finish here, I just want to read Mark Rosewater quote again from his 2014 Blogatog. We have white seeks peace through structure, blue seeks perfection through knowledge, black seeks power through ruthlessness, red seeks freedom through action, and green seeks acceptance through growth. So on our next episode, we're talking about green, and we're going to look at acceptance and growth. As always, we want to make sure that you guys are being responsible. Don't drink and drive. If you're underage, you're not supposed to be drinking. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
We just want to make sure you guys are safe out there. We want to make sure that you guys are having fun and doing it responsibly. But really, like if you're drinking along with us, be safe out there. You can find us on YouTube, UNTAP UPKEEP Drink. And as we said at the top of the show, you should check out Drew's Brews. It's going to be on Twitter and Instagram. We're going to be showing off the beers that we've been drinking off the show. We don't have enough time to cover every single beer that we have.
There's too much good beer.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. The craft brewing scene is just exploding, and we couldn't be more happy to enjoy it. So check us out on Instagram at UNTAP UPKEEP Drink, on Twitter at UUD Podcast, Facebook at UUD Podcast. Make sure that you're following us to stay up to date with what's going on.
Yeah, that being said, the fact that we're going through all these beers, we're always up for suggestions. If you've got local beers that you want to, peep us into so we can get some ideas for new episodes.
Yeah,
we're always into new suggestions.
Always looking, and you guys, the community, is just the feedback that we've gotten, even just so far.
Yeah,
it's just been so great.
So thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us. As always,
have fun,
but not too much.